Hi, welcome to Tiny Garage Fabrication. Today's episode, we're continuing to work on the 1972 C10 shop truck. Last episode, I removed all the rear suspension components so that I could clean a few pieces up and install some new aftermarket parts that I got. Let's get to work. One final quick thing I'm going to do with all this hardware is throw it in here. All that I'm adding to this tub is white vinegar that I got at the grocery store. This has a mild acid content and it does help to remove rust. And now when I pull this stuff out of here tomorrow, I should be able to just easily wipe most of that rust off. Give it a water rinse, spray it with some oil of some type, and it'll be good to reinstall. So I wasn't in there too terribly long, maybe 14 hours, give or take, and it already took it down to clean white metal in some spots. Not perfect, but good enough for me to throw some rust converter and some paint on it. This is that bolt that was stuck in the control arm, super pitted up. This, if nothing else, is going to be a reason why I buy lowering blocks for the rear. Probably because I want to be low, but also because I need new bolts, and a lowering block kit comes with new bolts. Yeah, it's pretty bad. While there are definitely better solutions out there on the market, like Evaporust, the white vinegar is super cheap. Another option that's a little bit stronger is muriatic acid that you can buy in a gallon size at a home center. You'll want to dilute that with water though. Again, it still has the same basic kind of fail point as the vinegar, where it will do this shortly afterwards. Here's one of the only downsides to this. In the couple of minutes since I washed those other parts, these are already starting to flash rust. You know, kind of a big deal, kind of not a big deal. It's just something I want to be concerned about. Since I'm spraying a rust converter right over this, I'm not really worried about a little bit of flash rust. Alright, so I just kind of sprayed everything with a super light coat of this rust reformer. Claims that it instantly converts rust. I don't believe it too much, but whatever. A little bit of protection is better than what it had. I'm going to flip this stuff over, give it another light coat, and then I'll be ready to put back in the truck. I know that I said I wasn't going to go crazy cleaning stuff, but this rear axle definitely needed to have some crud taken off of it. I mean, that's just awful, and there was a lot of that. Not only that, but I also wanted to find the stamping. I knew that on these old trucks, the axle identification is not on the RPO code, so like the sticker in the glove box doesn't tell you what type of axle is in here. I mean, duh, it's a 12-bolt Chevy, you know, but I mean, it doesn't tell the gear ratio or if there is a, you know, locker or anything in it. So that information is stamped on one of the axle tubes. And right here is the stamp. So I'm looking at RHA W1171, and then it has a DC. This RHA right here is what will tell me what this axle is. I'll put that up on the screen here because I don't know right now. I gotta go look it up. Okay, well, here's all the new stuff. Crossmember with new bolts. I've got 4-inch dropped coils. These are the heavy duty version. I've got new shocks, KYB gas adjusts. I've got an adjustable panhard bar, and then I've got my shock relocation brackets right there, as well as new hardware to install those. The only stuff I'm keeping are the trailing arms, new bolts. These will be getting upgraded when I get the dropped blocks, and I'm still going to be running these. When I was looking for something else in my home garage, I did find these, which look a little newer, and I think I may have ordered these you know, from POL or something like that. Not really sure. I don't need them. These bolts are shorter than what was in there. Maybe I'll use them just because they have a good hex on the top. I don't know. We'll see what I feel like grabbing when I put the springs in. Now, speaking of the springs, here's what I took out and here's what's going in. certainly more of a 4-inch difference originally, but when these were installed, these 3 coils were completely collapsed and touching each other. And then you can also see that the coils themselves on this are a lot bigger diameter. So that's probably where the heavy duty comes into play. I wanted a stiff spring because this is the shop truck. I'll be towing and throwing stuff in the bed, so I thought this was my best bet. Alright, let's start with getting the crossmember in place. Now all that I'm doing here is adding 1 bolt to the upper and lower mount on one side so that I have kind of a pivot point, and then I can kind of bash this thing into place. So you can see it's made to go right in where the original one came out. It has little scallops on the sides for wiring, brake, and fuel lines to slide between the crossmember and the frame, and then it has those large oval cutouts on the sides for the exhaust to pass through, which is coincidentally the exact reason why I bought this crossmember. Also notice it has a built-in drive shaft loop, and there are holes drilled in the bottom for a little extension to mount the center support bearing for a 2-piece drive shaft. I currently have a 2-piece drive shaft. I'm going to make my own little mounting block for that. However, I do plan on looking for a 1-piece drive shaft or having a 1-piece drive shaft made in the future. Now I apologize for my light going out, but it happens. Now here shows all the brand new grade 8 hardware. I've got the 5 bolts on each side on the lower section, and there are 2 bolts on each side on the upper section. Here are the shock relocation brackets. These go in place of the original brackets with brand new grade 8 hardware. You can see it moves the upper shock mounting point to the rear of the vehicle, and then the lower ones move the lower shock mount forward a little bit. This essentially stands the shock up so it gets better travel. It's finally time to get all the rest of this stuff put in place. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory what I'm doing down here. And granted, you can't see it very well because, of course, I can't be held responsible to keep a light charged. Now the control arms go in place, and recall with the new crossmember the forward mounting location has been raised, and that essentially fixes the geometry once I essentially raise the rear via the shorter coil. So go ahead and get the control arm mounted to the coil. Now I'll go ahead and use a floor jack and a little bit of ingenuity and time so as not to try to bench press this heavy axle, but instead we'll try to mechanically get it in place as easy as possible. Now that the axle is in place, we'll drop the U-bolts in, throw that lower plate for the shock relocation bracket, and we'll go ahead and get those put on. Now with the trailing arms connected, we'll come up and install the shocks. These are brand new KYBs. Brand new hardware came with the shock relocation brackets, so go ahead and spin those on. And just like that, they go in place, and the rear suspension is basically completed. Now I do recognize here I didn't get any footage of putting the track bar in. You can see it right there in the background. And once this thing is back on the ground, I will spin it in and out to either lengthen or shorten it to center the axle. And that was the whole reason why I got the aftermarket one. Well, that wraps up another video. I've reinstalled all of the rear suspension. It looks really good down there. I know the video may not show it because my light kind of died. Like I said, I'm not a great YouTuber, but I'm doing my best. I'm done working underneath the truck for a little bit. I'm just kind of tired of it. I will have to get back to it later in the week so I can build the exhaust. But for now, I'm going to go back up to the engine. I'm going to get the fuel injection installed, the wiring completed, the accessories on, and start building the front, you know, doghouse, whatever you want to call it. And then I can fire the thing up with open headers, maybe, or I'll build the exhaust first. I really don't know. We'll see. Time for me to get out of here. I got to go walk my dog. She just got her cone off, so she desperately wants to go outside. Make sure you smash that like button, leave comments, share the video, subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next video.